There we go.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the April episode of Personal Defense Network Live. I'm Shannon, your moderator, and with me is Rob. Rob, where are you tonight?
Cape Gunworks. Toby, say hi. Toby owns Cape Gunworks. I'm teaching up here tomorrow. This is an amazing facility. I just got here tonight. They've had a great gun shop up here in on Cape Cod for a couple years in Massachusetts, and he has built really a state-of-the-art range training facility, huge classroom. He's going to build out a force-on-force scenario area in the back, 2 ranges. I have the banes of my existence is multi-bay indoor ranges with nothing but a cinder block wall between them, where I'll come in and, great people, great ranges. And I do love teaching as many places as I can, as you know, and a muddy range in the winter, or, a cold range in the snow and the wind, or even an indoor range. But there's something about an indoor range with nothing but a cinder block wall for safety, where you can still hear the sound coming through from the other ranges. And Toby has put a 4-foot thick insulated, it's, I don't know, it's 12 inches of concrete, right?
Yeah,
between
it's
the
a 12-inch block wall, completely corded.
Whoa.
Yeah, so people will get to see on social media, because the PDN tour is doing 2 classes here. Ian Strimbeck was down here teaching for combat focus shooting. Toby's an instructor. We got a lot of guys around here who do good work, and it's a beautiful range. So they're letting me, I kind of emptied the tour truck of accessories that we're going to talk about tonight, but just in case I need to, I may be able to run over to the shelf over there, over there, over there. How many square feet?
We got
right
4,000 square feet.
4,000 square feet of retail accessories. Well, guns, accessories, all kinds of stuff. So the questions we have tonight, I thought it would be good to have all this stuff here and utilize Cape Gunworks as well.
So is that a challenge for you to get in as many steps and run around that 4,000 square foot location?
Right. Toby, bring me those things. That land tack dragon, bring that over here.
Well, awesome. Well, thanks, Toby, for letting Rob use your space for tonight. Tonight's topic, actually, like Rob says, accessories for defense firearms. And Rob, you did mention the tour. I know that you're in full swing in the tour, so tell us more about where you're at and what you're doing.
Tuesday? Monday. It's Monday. Well, Friday night, I spoke at the Kansas State Rifle Association. They had a big event there. They invited me in to speak. They have a campus carry law going into effect. They're a constitutional carry state. They have really moved the ball downfield a lot in terms of just basically going back to shall not be infringed in Kansas. And this July 1st, when the campus carry law takes effect, is huge for them. So I was there. On Saturday, I was in New York City. There was a big TAC medical conference going on there. So I was there with some buddies, my partners from Avidity Arms, and guys from Benchmade were there, and we had a meeting Saturday night. Yesterday, I taught in Rhode Island. Rhode Island, I only have 3 states now that I haven't taught in, because I've spent time in every state. There's only 3 states I haven't actually taught in, and Rhode Island was the 4th, but as of yesterday, I've run a class in Rhode Island. We had some great guys there. Just the Wallem Lake Rod and Gun Club hosted us, and as far as everybody knows, it's kind of like the first time any range in Rhode Island that's open to the public has hosted, I guess what would be called a national trainer, or one of the guys like me that travels around. So that was cool for Wallem to do that. Mark over at PD Tactics did that. That was awesome. He does a lot of good training in this region too, and he comes out to Live Free or Die conference. He's really done a lot to grow the training and awareness in Rhode Island, which is actually a pretty free state to be in the Northeast and to be in New England, and have Connecticut right next to it, and Massachusetts right above it, and New York. You kind of have to go through occupied territory to get in or out of Rhode Island. But Rhode Island really doesn't have any restrictions. NFA items like your suppressors, your full autos, those kinds of things, but they don't have magazine capacities. They don't have AR bans. They don't have any of those kinds of things, waiting periods, whatever. And they do have a pretty relatively, especially for this region, easy concealed carry permit process. But they are going to have hundreds of people at the State House in Providence tomorrow night, because there are some agendas trying to be pushed to install Massachusetts, Connecticut, and New York-like restrictions on gun owners there. So that was cool. Today I was with the Connecticut State Police at their firearms training unit, their state range in Connecticut. Today I am in Massachusetts, and I'll be doing 2 classes here. And then Thursday I fly down to Georgia for the NRA annual convention and meeting. So it's like, what's that? Kansas, New York, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, and Georgia in 7 days.
Sounds pretty typical for you, actually, when you're on tour. Will you be speaking again at NRA this year?
No, this year's the first year in a while that I'm not going to be speaking at the NRA events. They've kind of, from what I understand, they've kind of pulled it back to just NRA people. I think Colonel Grossman may be the one guy who's not actually just like an NRA person who's putting on a presentation. So I actually saw the colonel. He was out in Kansas supporting that event as well. And other than that, they really cut back on the speakers this year. And I'm super busy with stuff going on with PDN. I'll be at the Tactical Walls. I'll be with Viridian on their stage every day at 11 o'clock. I'll be, of course, Crossbreed Holsters on day one. There's some cool stuff going on there on Friday at Crossbreed Holsters. I'll be opening the show with Rob Latham and Springfield Armory. When the doors open, I'll be with them doing a Facebook Live. So a lot of the tour sponsors, I'm sure I'll go see Tactical Walls. Angel Fire Ammo, we were just with them out in Kansas. CMMG, of course, will be down there in Atlanta as well. And then what else is going on down there? Every evening, we got different events going on, and it's a different pace for me this year, as far as spending a lot more time with the companies that I work with, as opposed to taking up what essentially ends up being about 6 hours a day in that presentation hall. And it's been great, and we've had thousands of people come through those seminars, but this year we're gonna be doing it a little different.
Awesome. Well, I'm sure a lot of our fans looking forward to seeing you there in Atlanta this weekend. So let's get started. Again, tonight's PDN live topic is accessories for defensive firearms. Thank you for everyone who logged in before we went live and submitted questions. That's what makes this show go round. So ask on-topic questions, and we'll do our best to answer them in this hour. If you want to connect with us in other ways, you can connect with us on Twitter at P_D_N, on Instagram at PD Network, and Facebook at Personal Defense Network. So let's just jump right into it. Like I said, we had a lot of questions before the show started, and a lot of them revolved around red dots on a home defense firearm. So
all right,
let's jump into
start there now. I think the plan was that while I talk about each accessory, you're going to use the whiteboard to draw your artist rendition of each accessory as I talk about it.
Challenge accepted.
This is my AR. Now we've checked these guns. I'll go through the motions here a little bit, but we have checked all these guns, and as you know, most of the time in the gun stores, you're going to see a lot of gun handling that you could snipe at from the other side of the screen, but please don't. We're being safe. I'm being watched, and we're going to be as careful as we can. But I also need to be able to show you this stuff, and we know there's other people around here, and I promise you, I'm not pointing it at anyone. There's no one over there right now. So this is my go-to when it comes to a red dot optic on a home defense gun. It has been for a while. You can see it's pretty beat up. This has been on this CMMG rifle, I think, for 3 years. It comes on and off every once in a while. Sometimes I loan it to students. It's got a quick release, real easy to use, quick release here. It just kind of falls off when I need it to come off. If it were to be damaged, I could take it off very quickly and easily. If I want to put it on another gun, I can also do that relatively easily. Putting it back on this gun is a little bit trickier than taking it off, but that's okay. It's not really about getting it on quickly. It's about being able to get it out of the way if I needed to. And the idea of getting it out of the way is, especially if you have your backup iron sights and this were damaged in a way that was obscuring your view. Now you'll notice that I don't have backup iron sights on this particular gun, and I actually intend to use this very small aperture on the Aimpoint Micro in conjunction with a backup front sight, backup iron sight front sight that is going to be able to be giving me a kind of a big ghost ring effect. So I am a huge advocate of red dots on rifles. There was a time when I think we as a community were skeptical of them and kind of felt like, well, if you don't know how to use your iron sights, you don't really know how to be a rifleman, that kind of thing. And I think there's some truth to that, but the red dots are so durable, so affordable now, I think, in a lot of ways too. Less cost than the Aimpoint is something like the Trijicon MRO. They're out there. They're very popular. I have one of those on a rifle down there. This one is one I'm testing this year for the first time. This is a Hollow Sun. I'm kind of excited about it. A lot of people are excited about the SIG optic line too, and from my understanding, these are basically kind of made in the same place, a little different logo, but as far as the operations and the structure and the unit and the mechanics and the electronics and all that stuff, kind of the same thing going on here with this Hollow Sun. And this whole setup with this mount and a lower mount, if you have, we had to actually, I loaned this to a student last week that had a Scorpion, one of the CZ pistol caliber carbines, and it has its recoil, of course, is up above the barrel. So you don't need the riser. And this for under $200 came with both mounts and all that. So that's kind of a cool one that we're testing out this year. And I've also got it matched up with a backup front sight as well. When it comes to red dots on pistols, not so much. There's some big differences in terms of the way the red dot operates with your face on the gun and the red dot in your field of view. And in a place that's very, very consistent with the rifle, right? You also have a very different amount of abuse coming up to this thing here, because there's no movement, there's no reciprocating part of the gun. That just sits on top of the rail, and all the movement of the gun is internal, which with the modern red dot sights, which I've got a gun here that's all tricked out. We got lights, lasers, suppressors, and a red dot optic as well on this Springfield. This is going to obviously move around a lot. If you're carrying the gun around, this is going to be exposed to a lot of the dust and the dirt and all that kind of stuff. Out in the weather, you've got the rain, and this gun kind of moves around in front of you. So sure, you use your kinesthetic alignment to get that dot out there and get it in the right place. And certainly there's a learning curve. You can learn to use these pretty quickly. The difference is the capabilities of the rifle. Because you have those 4 points of contact, the capabilities of a rifle to control deviation are dramatically higher, right? So we can be more accurate, or we can be accurate more often over a wider range of circumstances, target sizes, distance, bystanders, all those things. Whereas the pistol is a little bit more limited, a lot more limited really for most people. And where that red dot really starts to take advantage or be an advantage, way outside the plausible spectrum of personal defense. You know, we teach kinesthetic alignment as the primary method for aiming. Just get the gun in your hand, consistent grip, drive it out in parallel with your line of sight, relatively smooth trigger pull. And then we use sighted fire as the advanced technique. You know, within an hour or so on the range, we'll get people on their sights for headshots and things like that. Then we get to longer ranges as the day goes on in our classes. By the time we would get somewhere where a red dot really would be an advantage for somebody, we'd be in our advanced pistol handling class talking about some very extremely anomalous situations where you would really benefit from the red dot. There's a lot of cost. There's more upkeep. There's more that can go wrong. We find a lot of people end up putting their hands kind of up here in front of the apparatus, in front of the lens when they're manipulating the gun, and that puts it right over the ejection port. So we see people inducing malfunctions. So there's just more failure points, a lot more cost for very, very little advantage outside of the range setting and competition setting. And that's why you see a lot of red dots in competition, you know, and I went through it in the 90s trying to make it work. And another time in the 2000s, we looked at them, and I really kind of resisted this time. I was like, you know, I've been through this. I've talked to a lot of people I trust. Rob Latham and I, for example, have talked about it a lot as far as the difference of competition versus the personal defense world or home defense world, the red dots on a pistol. And I was sort of resigned to, I'm not going to go through the time, effort, and energy just to kind of placate the trendiness of it. But the fact is, it's been around now. This trend has been around and growing for a couple years now of red dots on pistols. So it deserved more attention than that. So I went ahead and I've spent a lot of time with that gun. I've shot that gun a lot. I actually posted a video for our instructors to see where we were comparing what that, and it's actually at the PDN Gold member site. So we have the private conversation area for PDN Gold members on Facebook. I posted that video, and I put a steel target out at 20 yards and shot with the red dot, shot with a green laser, and shot with iron sights, and showed that the red dot can be a little bit of an advantage out there, as is the laser. And then up close, 15 feet into the chest, showed how if you look for the red dot, it's probably going to be the slowest of the three. If you look for the laser, it's going to be noticeably faster than looking for the red dot. And of course, if you just drive the gun out and you don't look for anything, you just focus on the target and use kinesthetic alignment, it's noticeably faster than any, you know, visually aided aiming option. So I just don't think they're sort of ready for prime time on pistols, but ARs, absolutely.
So where is the best yardage marker to sight in a red dot?
Oh, that's a good question. Can I use your whiteboard? No,
Sure.
I can't. I actually can't. But if you want to draw a barrel of a rifle and then up above it put the red dot, and what you have to think about is that when the bullet comes out of that end of the barrel, right, it's going to come out and it's going to arc down. Gravity is going to pull it down. So yeah, just kind of go out towards, that kind of works. You know, hopefully it's not lobbing itself like that, but we get the point. That's fine. Now draw a perfectly straight line out coming out of the red dot. Yeah, it's perfectly straight line. Yeah, just like that. So that's kind of what happens. All right, and don't pick on the art. All right, you guys get it. The line of the optic is going to cross the bullet path twice. And normally we set our gear up for what is most likely to happen. So we would want to zero a gun for our most likely engagement distance. Well, the fact is 99% of the people that come through our classes that aren't armed professionals, their most likely engagement distance for a rifle is like, 15 to 30 feet inside their house. But wait, we're going to need that drawing. You can't sit there. So if you make that angle really steep, coming out of the optic and down to what a line that would be more parallel with that. If you could draw a line at that arc, just don't have it come up from the barrel there. Erase your bullet path. Yeah, erase the bullet path. And don't have it jump up. It just needs to come straight out and then dive down that arc. Anyway, you guys know what I mean. It kind of comes out and it drops down. Yeah, much more like that. So now give me a steep angle on the optic line that does the same thing it did before, really close to the barrel. Here comes Toby with a whiteboard. He's going to fix this.
Am I getting fired?
So what happens is Toby's on fire right now. This is why I knew I shouldn't have mentioned the damn whiteboard you had. All right, so check it out. Here's the dot. Here's the red dot. Here's the barrel. And if the bullet comes out and does that, if we make this really steep and that line comes through it at like 15 feet, then that's great for putting the red dot exactly where you want the bullet to be inside your bedroom. The problem is it becomes largely useless, even like maybe across the open floor space of your house, or certainly out into your front yard, or if you ever end up in a situation where you have to shoot it at like 50 yards, then that becomes kind of useless. So what we actually recommend that you do, long way to get to this answer, is that you've got your bullet path, that you zero it for like out at 100 yards or so, 75 to 100 yards. And that kind of depends on your barrel length and how high up the optic is and your bullet speed and bullet weight. And there's a lot of different variations here. But generally the idea is that if you zero out at 75 or 100 yards, if you think about the human head, you've got, this is the bad guy, right? So you got your bad guy. If you put the red dot right there, if you're zeroed out at 100 yards, if you're in that bedroom distance at 15 feet or whatever, that bullet is going to fall somewhere inside this oval down towards the bottom. And as you get closer, so you can see because the bullet path is below the optic line, right? And then as you get closer to your zero, that bullet moves up. So basically anywhere out to 100 yards, if you put the dot at the top of the ear, right? If you're shooting to protect somebody else, you put the dot right up here, at the bridge of the nose or at the eyebrow line. Thank you, Toby. You will have one point of aim. So that's where we get our consistency, and that's where we get the efficiency. One point of aim with the red dot all around this band, top of the ear, right under the eyebrows, right at the eyebrows. And you got to tweak this for your gun setup, but that's the idea. Zero out at 75 to 100, and don't worry about whether you're going to put the dot here or here or here. You always put the dot at that band, knowing the bullet will fall somewhere in this zone, and your windage has to be on. And ta-da, that's the most efficient way to set up a patrol rifle or a close quarters, home defense, workplace environment kind of deal. Like active shooter stuff, that's where you start getting into thinking about having a magnified optic. But if you were to have a red dot, you would still be pretty well served in that school setting if you were a school security officer or something like that, for that zero at the top of the eye, anywhere out to 110, 115 yards.
That was a great drawing lesson, by the way. Thank you for that.
You're like an archery hunter. So
one last question on the red dots. For those that are new and just getting into this, what's the average cost of a red dot?
Average cost would be a dangerous way to go, because the average cost is probably lower than the lower quality than you want for personal defense. There's plenty of red dots out there that if you're going to, so for example, I've got, 1, 2, 3, 4, I think I've got 6 ARs sitting here. And if I wasn't in the industry, I probably couldn't justify, like if I wasn't doing this professionally and loaning people stuff and everything else. And obviously some of these have been, here, take this one, try it out. Some of them have been bought at discount or distributor cost. It would be really hard for the average person who might have 4 or 5 ARs or 4 or 5 long guns in general to spend, $600 for each one of them to buy the highest quality, mount and optic. So what I usually recommend is that you buy one very high quality, $300 or up range, one of the proven optics that's out there. And, that's been kind of my historical, let's say for the last 5 years. I said, make sure you're spending at least $300 to $400 between the optic and the mount to make sure you're getting something quality. And then if you want to buy the $50, $100, $150 ones for all your extra guns, your plinkers, your trainers, the one that you're going to, your backup gun that you take to the range with you in case your primary one goes down in the middle of the class, I get it. You're probably not going to show up with 5 guns, each with $1,000 worth of accessories on them. That being said, like I said, this Hollow Sun, I mean, if it delivers like everybody says it will, and in what I've seen so far, this first month and a half or so that I've let students use it and I've had it bouncing around in the tour truck, that's a $200 unit. So it makes sense that we're seeing the prices come down for a high enough quality. for personal defense, because you can find them for $50. I've tried a bunch of them. It's easy enough, once or twice a year to go in and buy the ones that are, $100, $79, and even less than that, just to hope, kind of keep, and they just don't hold up.
So with red dot sights, what are other sights out there? Just like 2 or 3 other different types of sights that would be typical for a personal defense.
The Aimpoint PRO is probably like the go-to, just right. You can go buy it right now. Know that you're probably going to get something that's going to work for you. It's going to be durable. The batteries are going to last a long time. You don't have to worry about that kind of thing going on. That's probably been my go-to, the lowest end recommendation. Now the Trijicon MRO is also a really good option, and it's maybe a little bit more expensive than the PRO, but it's kind of in that same range. And then the Aimpoint Micro that I showed earlier is sort of getting up into the little bit higher cost, but a very proven and durable optic. The EOTech has some options out there as well. I've never been as much of a fan of that setup. What else do I have? Like Seymour is one. The Seymours are going to be a little bit less. I've had people tell me that the new ones are a lot more durable than kind of the era that I originally invested in. I always liked the idea of these because they just kind of melt right into an AR, and they're very obviously wide open view. You don't have a lot blocking anything going on, but I haven't had the best of luck with these historically. People tell me the new ones that are the tactical, combat rated ones are much more durable than the old ones. So I actually may invest in one of those to check them out too. And these I think run $300 to $400.
Awesome. So let's shift away from red dot and move into lasers. And what your thoughts are on lasers specifically, pros and cons, red versus green. Let's just.
All right. So there's no doubt that the green is easier to see. The greens are brighter. The greens are still a little more expensive than the reds. Reds have come way down in price. Viridian is a tour sponsor. We'll say that. I've got a few different types of lasers here. I've got kind of, this used to be the Insight Technologies kind of, this is a light and laser combo. This one is a red one. This is one of the few red ones that I carry around still. I don't know if you can, there's just a laser only, got that going on. And it's also got the laser and the light option. But this one is kind of a quick put it on the gun loaner kind of deal set up. It's got a remote pressure switch as well as the little knob down there. If somebody needs to borrow something out on the range, this thing has been bouncing around with me for many, many years, and it's durable and a good deal. The ones that I'm using on my guns now, let me grab, this is kind of like my go-to AR. And this one, you can see has the laser and light combo. This is the green laser, and this is the Viridian C5. Now, a lot of people are going to want the X5L, which is out here somewhere too. Oh, that's that one. This X5L. A lot of people are going to want the larger one. It's going to be a brighter light, and it's going to have the remote pressure pad switch and that kind of stuff as well. Personally, I've been putting handgun size light and laser options on top of ARs for a long time. That just take up less space, and inside of a home defense scenario, they're certainly going to give you enough light. And that's really my primary use, for these guns. The laser, obviously, you can see it's strobing now. That's one of the nice things about the Viridian is you can set these options pretty easily. And then you've got a pressure pad on either side for when you're holding the rifle. You get it with your thumb, get it with your finger on the other side, obviously ambidextrous. So I really do like this particular setup a lot. You can see it's also low enough profile that it will go under the optic line of the red dot, and it'll go under the line of the iron sight as well. Now, the reason I like to keep it up on top is because obviously I'm using a low ready, right? So I can back up a little bit here and kind of show you. I'll be here. If I were to flash this down on the ground, I'm going to get a nice bounce. I'm not going to have the shadow of the gun. If I'm coming out around cover, I don't have the light on this side flashing back against me on a corner of a wall. I don't have to come out as far to get the light to be able to go down range. Same thing if I'm going to have it over here on the other side. Of course, if it were underneath, well, now I've got a problem as far as the shadow being cast when I flash down at the ground. So I like the laser up on top. It's also easier to manipulate up there. Some of the people may be used to seeing these types of lasers, military lights and lasers also set up on top as well, going around the front sight post. I just put it in front of on these free floated barrels up on the rail in front of that. So lasers I really like. If someone were going to ask me about the difference between like a red dot and a laser, let's go back to this thing, right? So we've got the red dot and the laser on this. There's no doubt that I'd rather have the laser. I think in a personal defense situation, the laser gives you a tertiary aiming option, a third aiming option after kinesthetic alignment and after using the traditional sights. The laser is really useful in situations where you can't get to an extended shooting position. If you're injured or if you're shooting from retention, obviously this gun's empty still. I'm gonna grab, let's see, where is, you guys may help me out. Where is that crossbreed holster that has the Viridian built in? There's, well, I don't know, it's around here somewhere. But we had it, it's in one of these boxes. We'll try to find that, because I literally just pulled the, oh, here it is. I knew it was here. There's a lot of gear out here. So this has the Viridian instant on technology built in from Crossbreed. It's got a little magnet here that essentially turns that off, saves the laser. So as soon as I pull this XDS out, my laser is on. So you can see that way. It's off inside of the holster. As soon as I pull that back from that magnet, now I'm going to have it on. So I've got the laser kind of built in. I don't have to worry about hitting any buttons, any switches, any pressure, anything like that. It's just on. Now what this allows me to do is, normally if I'm going to aim, right, I'm just going to drive the gun out and get my kinesthetic alignment. I'm looking at the target, I drive out, I'm aligned on the target, no big deal. If I need to make a headshot across the hallway or something like that, if it's a shot that I can't get just with kinesthetic alignment, well, now I'm going to drive out, close an eye, focus on that front sight, and get my traditional sight alignment, sight picture. But if I'm in a situation where I can't extend the gun, I can't bring the gun up to my line of sight, maybe someone is within 2 arms reach, and if I drive the gun out, they might hit the gun or grab the gun. So I'm going to shoot from a retention position, but I'm not in contact. Well, if I'm going to shoot from a retention position, I think you probably can see it on this t-shirt here. You can see that laser, I think, probably pretty well. Mm-hmm. So now, if I'm here within 2 arms reach, if I put my gun out to aim like I normally would, this person can grab or swat at the gun. If I bring the gun out of the holster and I come out here in this position, I can see exactly where that shot's going to go. And there's really no other way to do that except for guessing. It's different when you're in contact because you're using a body index, but just outside of contact, this gives me another option. The other nice thing about the laser option is if I'm injured, if I'm lying on the ground and I can't get the gun up to a shooting position, or for any other reason, I'm injured in my arm and I can't get the gun up to my line of sight, once again, I can sitting in this chair, lying back against this counter, I can still get to this position and see the laser on the target. So even across the room or whatever, I can still make that shot. The other thing is nice is if I have a very low contrast situation. So I have a situation where I can get the gun up to my line of sight, but while I have the gun in my line of sight, for whatever reason, my sights, I lose contrast, right? So I don't have enough light to see the sights against the target, or the target's dark, the sights are dark. Maybe your sights get broken. I don't know. Something crazy happens and you smash down on the ground and you lose one of the wings of your rear sight, so you can't get sight alignment, sight picture. And I realize we're getting into extreme situations here, but that's where the laser comes in, is in extreme situations. It's not a primary aiming tool. It's a tertiary aiming tool. Primary is kinesthetic alignment. Secondary is your sights. And in the third way, we might line up the gun and know where the bullets are going to go is with the laser. And all of those things exist with the rifle as well. If I can't get the rifle up to a shooting position, if I'm pulling the rifle back into a compressed position for retention, that's where the laser really shines. So if somebody asks me about a light, a laser, or a red dot, no doubt that the laser is the next best accessory after, a good gun, a reliable gun, a good holster, all those other things, the sights, all the things we know you need, including the practice ammo and the training certificates and all that. When you're ready to go to that next level and extend the situations you're ready for beyond what you can do without a red dot or a light or a laser, the laser would be the first thing I would say you should get.
So we haven't talked about lights yet. Let's talk about lights. Live question came in, is it better to have a light mounted on your carbine or in your hand?
In your hand. My primary light should be a handheld light. I really think that's a pretty hard and fast rule for everybody that isn't hunting bad guys. If you're not an armed professional, literally hunting bad guys actively, militaries, SWAT teams kind of situations, even patrol officer, the average patrol officer probably should have a handheld light as their primary, even if their gun is out in the ready position when they're searching around for something. I think a handheld light should be the primary, and having a backup light on your handgun or a backup light on your rifle, not a bad idea at all, especially on the long guns, right? People will have special situations. Well, I only have the use of one hand. What should I do, Rob? Yes, you should have a weapon mounted light. I have a toddler that I think I'm going to be picking up and carrying. Should I try to hold the kid and the flashlight in the same hand? Maybe, but I would still say yes, you're now a candidate where a weapon-mounted light makes more sense. People will talk about the long gun. Remember, when you put the long gun on, a lot of the weight will be supported by the sling. Well, maybe sling questions will come up as an accessory. So you can have your hand on the controls and the weight held by the sling and still have that handheld flashlight primarily. You know, overwhelmingly, people that hear a bump in the night, the proverbial bump in the night, don't have to shoot people. And we know every year there are tragic incidents where people shoot their family members, the neighbor, the drunk guy that came into their house that made a mistake and thought it was his apartment because all the apartments kind of looked the same, and that's how drunk he was. And some of those situations are negligent. Some of those situations are somebody had their finger on the trigger, they got startled, and that shot went off. And I contend that if we kept our gun in a ready position and not in an extended position, and if we were using handheld lights instead of weapon-mounted lights, we'd be much less likely to have those situations. Now, I will, if somebody's going to comment how many of those situations involve weapon-mounted lights, probably almost none, right? I get that. But I know there's a lot of law enforcement negligent discharges where the law enforcement officer did have a primary light on the gun, didn't have his primary light being a weapon-mounted light, and he's using the light to search. And we know that anytime someone pushes a gun out towards a shooting position or brings a rifle up towards a shooting position, people have a tendency to get that finger near the trigger. Once the finger's near the trigger, you get startled and grasp reflex sets in, and then the gun goes off. So, you know, it's really I think a dangerous, for some people, potentially bordering on reckless idea to have your primary light be the handheld light. I mean, let's face it, in our home defense classes, we're telling people primarily if they have to run around the house and get the kids and check on things and all that, they should be doing it with a holstered gun. You know, gun should be in the holster, your hand should be on the gun. We call it the staged position. And you should be using your light to find and identify things, or just, you know, your house, right? Or just turn the light switch on, just like go find the people. This whole idea that you're like searching your house or just clearing rooms, like that's fantasy camp.
Yeah. So let's talk lumens for flashlights. How bright is bright enough for a light? Like
bright enough. If you like shine your light down the longest hallway in your house and you can't identify somebody on the other end, then it's not bright enough. If you turn the light on in the longest hallway in your house and you see stars and you know, if God forbid you point it into a mirror, like your head explodes, or you need sunscreen, like if you're going to test it on someone, they need to put on, like, you know, I don't know, some kind of a veil first. I think lumens is marketing. I think, you know, again, unless you are going in the harm's way, wearing a uniform, doing, you know, going after bad people in places where you want to blind and disorient them, and you may have to shine a light across a 150-yard, you know, down a 150-yard alley, or, you know, you're in situations where pitch blackness inside of buildings, power outages, things like that, and you want that crazy, you know, billion lumen, whatever. There was a time and a place, you know, when it was the old, like, do I want the 3D cell mag light or this new fancy Surefire thing I heard about, you know, like in those days, that lumens were a thing because we were talking about the difference between, you know, maybe 50 and 100. Now that we're talking about the difference between 230 and 780, it's, you know, it's like having 800, that new Dodge Demon with 850 horsepower. Like, that's amazing, right? If you're going to go drag race. But honestly, in the US, like, I mean, I have a car with I don't know, between 450, 460 horsepower, and I'm not on the Autobahn. Like, I get frustrated by it because, you know, it's like the car could do so much more than I actually can do legally when we drive it on the street. But it's awesome. I love it. But I don't need that much horsepower really to drive around, you know, and we do that with lumens, right? And if we're doing it with lumens because, like, I can't even find a flashlight in this store that has less than 200, so okay, I'm going to do it. That's fine. But if you think you need 500 or 600 or 1,000, you know, there's plenty of people out there that want all the lumens. Like, I just want a few of the lumens. Like, give me enough lumens, right? Like,
just a few.
Enough lumens would be good. Yeah, it's marketing.
Awesome. Just marketing. So we've discussed the red dot. We've discussed lasers. We've discussed flashlights. We're a little over halfway through the show. For those of you that just joined us, this is Accessories for Defensive Firearms with Rob Pincus on PDN Live. And we've been answering all the live questions right now. So if you are here and watching us live, ask away, ask on topic, and we'll more than likely answer your question. If you want to connect with us afterwards, we're on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We even have a newsletter you can sign up for. So yeah, we'll kick off into the second half of the show. Robbie mentioned Sling. Yes.
Well, okay, we can do slings. We can do slings. That's cool. Because people may not. One of the things here is that I know it's a Q&A, but as I like to do at some points in the show is just tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. So at some point I'm going to talk about accessories that people may not be asking about that are possibly important, or things that I don't want you to think are important. But we can talk about slings. So in 2017. In 2017, I think it makes a lot of sense to have a sling that is convertible. All right, so a sling that'll go from 1 point to 2 point. For close quarters, for that home defense, for patrol rifle use, that kind of stuff. I'm a big fan of a single point sling. I think it's more versatile. I think that it really will do more of what you need it to do, and it's much less likely to get in the way. And the way that you want to set your sling up is so that the toe of the stock is really close to where you want it when you shoot. So your weak side arm goes through the hole, and you have your single point sling set up, preferably so that the toe of the stock, the back of the butt of the stock, the bottom part of that sits very close to where you want to put it when you're in your ready position, and then when you bring up to the shooting position. So that's what you're seeing here with this particular sling. Now, if I want to, now this is going to bounce around, and it's going to, if I jump out of a helicopter, it's going to hit me in the face or, whatever, but I'm probably not doing that when I'm in my room barricaded waiting for the police to show up. But if I'm going to move around, carry the kids, that kind of thing, then yes, this is going to be bouncing and moving all over the place. Now, I like that flexibility for pulling back to a retention position, for I might, get injured and need to be shooting with my other arm. I might be transitioning, like a hasty transition, or maybe doing a full transition. There's a lot of reasons why I want that kind of flexibility with the gun in close quarters. But if I want to take this off and attach it down here now, I have a gun that's much less likely to end up kind of randomly all over the place, right? And I can also then push this back out of the way and hold it on my back, and now I can do whatever I need to do, pick up the kids or climb a ladder or jump out of a helicopter or whatever it is I'm going to do with this thing. The process of switching that, however, is something that doesn't, it's relatively, there's a lot of different types of slings, and there's a lot of different types of ways to do that. This CMMG rifle actually has a quick detach hole built into the rail, so I can use I could use something like this and not have to have this attachment piece on top of the rail. This one would attach the same way back here to this Mission First stock, and then when this pops out, this would attach to the rail. Here's a rail. This would attach to the rail there and really do the same thing. So this has quick detach on both ends of the sling. So you want to make sure that you get a sling that works well with your rifle, that you get the accessories set up right. I also like to use this particular accessory as an index point, potentially pushing or pulling if I'm in an unorthodox position, or pushing it up against something if I want to get stability. So that's one of the reasons I like this particular setup. And then I can go back to my single point, and these usually have a lock to hold it in place so it doesn't, accidentally get stuck in there. People will talk about slings like quick releases. Again, if you're in your helicopter and your helicopter crashes into the sea and it's sinking, and then your gun gets caught in the helicopter, you don't want to go down with the helicopter, so you want to have that quick release ability so that you can pop this off one way or the other, which I'm not doing. So I'm going down with the helicopter now. So you pop that, open that up. That's a thing. But I think people make a lot about the slings. It's in the single point versus 2 point, 3 point. Don't do that. That was we thought that was cool for a while. Don't do that. And I'm not talking about the Ching sling. That's something different. But the one with the little slidey, loopy, live in the one loop and another loop on the rifle, you don't want that. This is a pure single point here with a bungee. That was a thing that was kind of cool for a while. I don't have a problem with that. Again, the single point is the primary that you want. I think that a swivelly, slingy thing somewhere near the collar on an AR up here, the further up front you can get it, the better. This one's from Phase 5. This is kind of a nice one you can put on there, and then you would attach the sling like that, and this is just going to slide around. The ASAP plate from Magpul was one that everybody liked. It jingles. It's kind of loud and clinky clanky, but other than that, you can silence that with some duct tape, I guess, if you want to. But I really like a convertible sling set up single point, but can go to two point if I needed to. And again, you want it set up so that the gun hangs in a position that's very easy. If you let go of it and then you need your rifle quickly, when you grab it, you just rotate it, get that toe of the stock, bring it right up to your shooting position. It's very efficient. You know, you think of a slung rifle as you would a holstered pistol. So when a rifle's on a sling, it's like the pistol in a holster. You wouldn't want to wear a holster in a way that would make it hard for you to get it into a grip and then drive it out to your shooting position. Well, the same thing with a sling. You don't want it holding your rifle in some way that's cumbersome or awkward.
So we can go so many different directions right now in terms of accessories for firearms. So I know that you had directions that you wanted to take it in.
We'll talk about a couple things. First of all, magazine extensions. A lot of people want these magazine extensions for their backup mags or their maybe their home defense gun where size, concealability really doesn't matter. The Terran tactical stuff, like super proven, love it to death, really good, high quality stuff. This is one of my duty mags, sheriff's office with an extended Terran tactical. That's a really good idea. Got to give a shout out to the Plan B from Safety Solutions Academy. Paul Carlson's done some work for us. The shield, the base plate that he has here that's extended, it gives a little extra weight, gives a little extra purchase, and this one's metal, and it actually helps with the drop free. And what it does with the extended magazines is you need to have some kind of a collar on the shield, because if you have an extended magazine on it and you push it into the gun without the sleeve, then you can actually cause a malfunction. A lot of the sleeves that you see impinge drop freeness and also can then pinch when you go to insert the magazine. So if you think of like the XDS, which I carry, if I want to put one of the extended magazines in that has the sleeve that comes from Springfield, and you know, Springfield's a tour sponsor, but they know I'm not a fan of those sleeves, and I'm here to give you guys really good information. I put extended magazines in all the time. I was out on the range today shooting an extended magazine with some of the guys with the state police. We were looking at a couple different compact backup guns, and we were using that one with an extended magazine, but I don't put the sleeves on it. That gun doesn't suffer the same problem the shield does of bent and broken extractors like almost instantly when you try to insert these magazines without the sleeve. As far as, I had another magazine out here I wanted to talk about that had just the pinky extension. This is off of an FN. The pinky extensions are fine. They affect concealability and carryability, but they don't impinge in the same way. I'm talking about the sleeves that go around the extended magazines, which obviously I don't have one because I don't like them. So I don't know if Toby may have one laying around, but I don't generally have those around. So, but you guys know what I'm talking about. I'm not a fan of those sleeves as an aftermarket accessory. I think people make a lot bigger deal than they need to about the extended magazines or places to put your hand. If you're carrying a compact gun, then you aren't going to have as good a purchase on the grip. If you turn it into a full-size gun, well, then you might just want a full-size. So you can see the difference with this base plate on the shield versus the Plan B.
Not even aftermarket.
And this is not aftermarket. No, this is the stock one. This is the one that they send you, and you can see how much more it sticks out around against the back of the gun. I think you can see it. And that extra length right there, that where that little roundness is, that's what hooks on the back of your hand. So you're actually turning this into part of the grip when you're gripping the magazine, and that's what keeps it from dropping free, is that it's now part of your grip. And most guns, most subcompact guns, let me look for one here. The XDS has one. It's not very pronounced. It's just a small little groove there. Some of the guns have a really pronounced groove. The Glock 26 comes to mind as a really pronounced. Here it is. Glock 26 has a really pronounced extension where the magazine goes in, but it doesn't touch your hand. So the magazine stays flush. Well, as soon as you put an extended magazine in with any kind of a sleeve that makes part of this grip contour attached to the magazine, you're going to lose the ability to get a drop-free situation, and you might pinch the bottom of your hand as you go to insert the magazine. So you want to stay away from that. Trigger guards. Trigger guards on a lanyard, really important for guns that are staged inside of like a tactical walls unit, any kind of a safe. If you're carrying a gun in a purse without a holster, we don't recommend that. But if you have a round chambered, and you probably should, you probably want to have a round chambered. Maybe if you guys, silver, yeah, there you go. So if you have a gun stage, there's a full 5-inch, the tactical model of the Springfield XD Mod 2. This would be a very good home defense gun. In fact, this is one that I keep staged quite often when I'm off the tour. So if this is loaded and chambered inside of a box, I don't want to risk reaching in to grab it and hitting that trigger, in a situation, in a high stress situation. So what I can do is I can put this trigger guard on the trigger. Now the gun's loaded, chambered, and I reach into the box to grab the gun, and no matter what happens, I can't set the gun off. This lanyard would be anchored into that quick access safe or the tactical walls unit. You know, I've got several little just big eye screws driven into the studs on either side of the tactical walls, like slider units or the shelves behind it. And then when I pull this off, what I end up with is now I'm ready to go. So my trigger finger is already indexed. When I get my grip, I pull this out of the box, and now if I need to hit that trigger, I can hit the trigger. So trigger guards as an accessory for staged guns is important. That people don't usually ask about that because it's not something we generally talk about. What else? That was it. I wanted to talk about extended magazines, the little death sleeves. I wanted to talk about the and index points. So I like to put a little section of rail on the bottom. I don't like the vertical foregrips. You know, your support hand. You know, if people come to our rifle classes, I tell them, you know, in 1987, if you weren't, you know, hugging the mag well in the ready position, you know, you weren't cool. And in 2007, if you weren't like way out here with your thumb over bore, you know, you weren't cool. The fact is there's a time and a place for this. There's a time and a place for this. And there's a time and a place for all the in-betweens. And what I like is a little index point, this little rail section here that I can grab the rifle and I know where my hand is. And it's near where I deploy my backup front sight. It's near where I hit the button to turn the light or the laser on. It's also something I can pull against or push against. I can hook this on a barricade or a table or a receiver hitch or part of a bumper on a truck or whatever else. Maybe a corner when I want to get extra leverage, extra pressure, I can use that for that. So that extra rail piece, like I said, I refer to as an index point. That's a little accessory that's real easy to get on all these rails because we all generally, you know, the kind of cutting edge gear isn't coming out with it's coming out with free floated barrels, and it's coming out without a rail section. It's either like the key mod or the M-lock or something else. So you don't have a whole lot of things taking up real estate. Throwing this little rail section on there is something that I have found over the years to be a really good solution to extra leverage on the bottom of the rail without taking up a lot of space, being bulky, and without insinuating that your hand is always supposed to be in one location or another, because that support hand needs to move.
Suppressors. Talk to us about suppressors.
Suppressors. Suppressors for home defense is a topic that I think has been getting a lot more attention lately because, of course, everybody hopes that we're going to see the Hearing Protection Act or some other version of a rollback of the NFA, the National Firearms Act, restrictions on the buying and purchasing of suppressors get moved. That somewhere that's probably going to change during, you know, the current administration, and with us having the control of the legislature. You know, I certainly am hopeful that in the next 2 years we're going to see a change in how easy or hard it is to get suppressors and short-barreled rifles, things like that. In fact, you know, it wouldn't surprise me at all if, you know, relatively soon we see the ATF kind of reverse their reversal of the suggestion of the reversal or the opinion on AR pistols. You know, I think you know, the AR pistol thing with the SIG brace or a traditional pistol buffer tube being, you know, if I put this up against my body and then bring this up to my cheek, I'm apparently, you know, in danger of being accused of committing a felony because I've effectively created a short barrel rifle. And for a while that wasn't the case. And it wouldn't surprise me at all if that gets reversed. In fact, we taped a whole DVD, Steve Arian and I, for Personal Defense Network. We did a DVD on AR pistols for home defense or for patrol rifle use. And there 3,000 of them are sitting in a warehouse because I'm not going to encourage people to commit a felony for the way we taped that video during that window where it seemed like it was okay to shoulder AR pistols. But if there's a reversal, that'll go out. When you had, and the reason I went to AR pistols is we were talking about NFA, but also if you're thinking about a home defense rifle, a short-barreled rifle or an AR pistol with a short barrel is going to put a potentially a lot of muzzle blast out there, but it's going to be easier to maneuver. Well, if you put a suppressor on there, even if it's not a silencer, it's not one that makes something completely quiet. If it's something, it just makes it what's called hearing safe, and it contains some of that concussion. Now you're kind of back to a standard carbine length, but you get the benefit of being able to use a rifle inside of your home without worrying about the muzzle blast and the concussion and that sound. Now, we know about auditory exclusion, and we know that at the end of the day, you know, even if it were permanent hearing damage or your family were to get permanent hearing damage, that's way less a price to pay than, you know, murder and rape and maiming from the home invasion person that's lethally threatening you that caused you to need to shoot them. So the hearing protection is, you know, sort of an after the fact aftermath. If we can avoid it, with a suppressor. And I think that's awesome. And I've been spending a lot more time with suppressors. Used to spend a lot of time with them in the military law enforcement environment, and kind of got away from them because Personal Defense Network, and we spend so much time now talking about home defense and carry guns. Now with like the Silencer Co. Maxim, that technology, the approach of integrally suppressed, potentially carryable defensive firearms, or even if in law enforcement, especially, the Maxim's kind of big. But as that technology progresses, as Silencer Co. does more with that, if we see short-barreled rifles or AR pistols easier to own and not have to jump through any extra hoop to own them. And now we start looking at suppressed guns that aren't incredibly long or incredibly heavy, because of course maneuvering inside of your house is a big deal. That technology has moved forward. If the laws start to work in our favor, even more than they have been, if we continue that trend we've had over the last couple decades of moving towards the shall not be infringed that we all sort of should expect when we read the Second Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, I think suppressors are going to be seen more and more often and be easier and easier to get and make more and more sense as they get smaller and easier to own. They're probably a really smart thing to be considering on a home defense rifle, especially.
Okay, so we've talked suppressors, we've talked slings, we've talked optics, we've talked lighting. We're getting to the last couple minutes of tonight's show. Have we missed anything important?
I'm sure we have. Toby, accessories we haven't done. Bayonets. Do you have any pistol bayonets? That was. Oversized charging handle. I can't believe I forgot that. Yeah, oversized charging handle is probably one of the most immediate recommendations I make for most people. Something like this. This is a BCM number 4. The BCM 3 or 4 is the one that I've sort of settled on being really awesome if you just want the charging handle. I actually have Mission First Tactical has a latch you can buy. It's a really inexpensive piece. It's just the latch that you can then attach to. And the one I had set up, I actually gave away to a student in the last class because he needed an oversized charging handle to be able to use his gun reliably and easily. So I gave him the one I had set up, and I need to set this one up. The old ones, the original ones, when we first started using these, they were really big. Like Badger was the one that everybody used like at first, and they're a lot bigger. And if you have an optic, like if you're using something like this Bro, this is a 308 CMMG. If you're using something that's a lot bigger and bulkier, that's where you start getting into really wanting a much larger, maybe working on both sides kind of legitimately, seriously oversized charging handle. Otherwise, let me see those BCMs. So Toby's got these here available at Cape Gunworks for the low price of $57.95 or extra $75.95 plus Massachusetts state sales tax. These are 7.62s.
Yeah. Well,
okay. Wow, that's a bargain.
And that's the MB.
All right, and then this is the MB 556. So anyway, point being, this is the package you're looking for. It's one of the most fundamental upgrades to an AR. I wish more companies would just send out their guns with them because in 2017, most people are moving towards running the charging handle, or they already accepted a long time ago that running that charging handle is really the primary best way to operate the gun, and oversized charging handle makes that really easy. And also gets you around the optics. The other thing you have to remember about the oversized charging handle is when I've got this mount here, the standard one, I might actually be kind of getting in too close. So the oversized charging handle makes it a lot easier to utilize the charging handle even with an optic with a quick release mount that might be a little bulkier. So big recommendation there for ARs.
Did you say pistol bayonet?
I did say pistol bayonet.
Okay, just checking.
Yep. Yeah.
All right. So if
someone and K-Bar for that innovation that everybody had, they sold out. They've only been open officially for 3 days, and they're already sold out of pistol bayonets.
So that's why the store's so clean. Okay. So top 3 accessories for a defensive firearm. If you could only get 3 things, what would they be?
For a defensive pistol, let's take the obvious out, right? You need spare magazines. You need a holster. I think sights. I think most guns, most guns, not every gun, but just about every gun that I see coming out of the factory that isn't a special edition or something needs aftermarket sights. If you have ramped sights, get rid of them. You don't want a ramped rear sight. You want something that you can, in an emergency, a flat face or the claw or the wedge or whatever that you can use for emergency manipulations. You want metal sights, not plastic sights. I like a plain rear there's a wide rear notch with no markings whatsoever and a good bright front, preferably a square if you're going to paint it, something like this, wide rear notch, and then a good bright square like that. This is the AmeriGlow. That's the Luma square, and obviously one of our claw sights on the back of that M&P. I think that the that's a thing. I can talk about that in a second. So I think that I think the charging handle, for if we're talking about an AR accessory, is necessary. Some people would consider the sling optional. I don't. I think that you're going to have the gun, and especially if you have kids, you're moving around with it, you're going to want that sling on there. And just for a training day, you want that. The third accessory is probably going to be really more situational dependent. Is it going to be, if you're a really good shooter and you have the extra money and you want it to be the laser, great. If you're a good shooter already and you inside your house, you have an SBR or a pistol or maybe a lightweight rifle with a 16-inch barrel and you want to get that suppressor, maybe the suppressor is going to be that third accessory for you. The red dot, I think for an AR, I definitely feel like a red dot is something in 2017 you want to seriously consider if you're going to, again, if you have to choose between a red dot and training, go take the training. But if you've taken the training and you've done the practice, red dot should be on there really quick. Laser on your pistol, great accessory. Laser on your rifle, great accessory. So that choice between, is it going to be the laser? Is it going to be the suppressor? Is it going to be the red dot? Those are maybe a little bit more personal, but they all definitely have their place. The angled sight, offset 45-degree backup sights is something that, with a magnified optic, now something bigger than the Bro, if you have one of the 1 to 4s or 1.5 to 6s or whatever you've got for a magnified optic. Now on a home defense gun, I don't recommend that. That's more of a 3-gun competition setup, or a patrol rifle maybe. Active shooter response for an SRO, probably a really good idea. For private security that have large corporate campuses, probably a really good idea to have that low magnification optic for active shooter response. And that's where you want to look at an offset optic, so that, or offset, iron sights or backup, or maybe even a little red dot, like you would see like a pistol red dot set up over there. In the olden days, we'd see people with the 4x, the ACOGs, with a little red dot up top that was set up for close range, and then that was magnified 4x, but you need 2 different cheek welds to use that. With one cheek weld, if I put a small optic or an iron sight here, I can just raise the gun over, just raise my elbow and rotate it, and that's going to line those sights up. That can be a really good accessory for people. If it's a staged gun at home, that paddle holster, that you're going to keep the gun in the paddle holster so you can holster it quickly, or that trigger guard, like we talked about, can be a great accessory as well. Probably worth, as we close up, to talk about things I wouldn't do. Accessories that are probably a bad idea potentially, or at least I certainly wouldn't make them a priority. The number one thing is aftermarket trigger work. Just not a fan of it. Use stock triggers. If you're so good that you're really going to benefit from an aftermarket trigger, maybe we'll have a conversation about it. But I think most people aren't, and most people that even are really good are probably really good enough to benefit more from, let's say, like that laser accessory or something else that maybe is going to help them over a different range of circumstances, other than just making their trigger control a little bit easier. We know, empirically, thousands of people have learned how to use a stock trigger in the Glock, the XD, the M&P just fine, and chasing that last, thousandth of a second on your split times, or hitting a headshot at 100 yards instead of 90 yards by trying to turn your modern striker fired gun essentially into like a 1911 trigger. I don't think it makes any sense. I think some of the stock triggers nowadays are even coming out a little bit closer to lighter than I think is appropriate, with less travel than I think is appropriate. So I think going with something like a stock trigger is really important. And this is not you're going to get sued, or you're going to say you messed with your gun and that's a problem. It's not that. It's just practical trigger control, learning how to shoot your gun well. That last bit you're going to get from the aftermarket trigger. Because I tell you, I've seen a lot of reliability issues. We just had a gun yesterday on a SIG 320 that, maybe the user installed it wrong or whatever, but at the end of the day, his gun didn't work. Pull the trigger 10 times to make it go bang once. And that's a problem. And I see it a lot. I see a lot of the best aftermarket triggers and a lot of the worst aftermarket triggers coming into classes. And quite often those guns don't make it through a 500 round day. So, chasing after performance with the aftermarket trigger, I don't suggest it at all. That's probably the biggest no-no for me. cuts on your slide and ports and compensators and all that on a defensive gun. Again, you're chasing after some like couple of thousandths somewhere in a timer drill. That's racetrack stuff. It's like putting slick tires on your daily driver just in case you need to accelerate really fast on a super dry day off the line so that a Mack truck that goes haywire, and crazy coming across the parking lot in the median might smash into you. So if you have slick tires and you can floor it and jump off that line real quick, you're going to save your family's life. So get slick tires on your car. Right? You're looking like I'm an idiot. Like that doesn't make any sense, Rob. Yeah, well, if you put an aftermarket trigger in your Glock, so you have a 2.5 pound trigger press and it barely moves, you just put slick tires on your daily driver in case the Mack truck jumps the median. It's kind of silly.
Gotcha. So we're at the top of the hour now. So we got one no that you don't like in accessories, but a wealth of information on every other accessory on the side. I know we didn't hit everything, but you hit the ones that the live people were asking about. So
awesome. And as usual, if people put questions down in the comments for tonight, maybe tomorrow, I'll take a look at those and jump in there. And as always, go to personaldefensenetwork.com, take a look at, put in flashlights, put in weapon mounted light, put in red dot, put in suppressors, put in slings. You're probably going to find several free articles, several videos probably in there, whether they're premium videos, if you're one of our premium members, or if you're one of the free members, you're just a visitor. If you haven't even registered yet, you can get a lot of information there. You should register, get the free newsletter, and you should consider becoming a premium member. We offer a lot of sales every once in a while. Jump in there and try it out. I think at worst case scenario, it's $40 for a year, and that's the price of a couple DVDs or maybe one DVD, depending on which training DVD you're buying, and you get so much for that premium membership. We've got our online classes. Choosing a defensive handgun is one of the new classes we've released under the training tab and at the store at personaldefensenetwork.com, the online distance education where you're going to get the downloads and you're going to go through several modules. And there's a lot of things to think about as you go through there that they're going to help you guide that purchase. And, if you get the right handgun, if the handgun fits you and you can get your hand on it the right way, and then of course you go through the fundamentals of defensive shooting class, you come out and take a live class with the tour or with any of our contributors, you're probably not going to need as many aftermarket accessories. You're probably not going to worry about as many aftermarket accessories as you are if you aren't confident in your ability to just run the gun. And if your gear doesn't, kind of come out of the shelf fitting you, which in 2017, you should be able to find something in a modern striker fired pistol and something in a good AR or a 20 gauge shotgun or, maybe an AK or a pistol caliber carbine that you can rely on and use well and efficiently without having to spend another 20%, 30%, 50% on accessories.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Rob. And thank you, Toby, for letting us use your shop tonight. Awesome shop.
Brendan, co-owner, has been listening in too. So, it's been great. It worked out great. He was in town, so why not?
Those guys. Don't worry about those guys.
Yeah, and we got
Josh.
some other guys here.
Josh
Live studio
here.
audience.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Thank you so much, guys. Rob, we'll see you at NRA this weekend. And
live stuff. And oh, look at that. People like your beard. You should see it. Sweet.
He's the Dan Blazarian stunt double.
Oh man, I'm gonna have more energy drink. All right, thanks for joining. We'll see everybody from NRA, and take a look always for the Facebook updates and social media, IG, my stuff, all the sponsors for the tour. We'll be doing 2 classes here in Massachusetts. Then I'll go down to the NRA. Come back up, we'll do another class in New Hampshire, and then the tour turns to the Midwest. We're going to Pennsylvania, Michigan, Illinois, Ohio, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Iowa. Lots of classes still have slots, both mine, Seeklanders, Craig Douglas, Caleb Causey, Derek Poole, Grant Cunningham, all those guys are out there. Barrett Kendrick, I'm sure I'm forgetting somebody. Andrew Bronco with his legal lessons. Check out the training tab at personaldefensenetwork.com. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you. Have a good night, everybody.